What if controlling millions didn't require violence, just full stomachs and endless entertainment? Ancient Rome discovered something dangerous. A fed and entertained population doesn't ask hard questions. This idea was summed up in a phrase coined by the poet Juvenal: bread and circuses. On the surface it sounds harmless. Food for the poor, games for the masses. The bread was real. It came through the cura annoni, the state-run grain supply. This system began as a way to stabilize the price of a vital food staple, but it quickly evolved into a massive welfare program. By the late Republic, hundreds of thousands of Roman citizens depended on monthly grain rations to survive. This was a lifeline for the city's vast population of poor and unemployed residents, many of whom had migrated from the countryside and had no other means of support. The grain dole was a logistical masterpiece, requiring fleets of ships to bring wheat from Egypt and North Africa to the port of Ostia. This wasn't charity. It was leverage. When the grain ships arrived on time, the city was calm. When they didn't, Rome erupted. Control the grain, and you controlled the mood of the empire. Quick pause. If you enjoy deep dives like this, subscribe. I post one long explainer and 2 short videos every week, and this is part of my January series on everything Roman: power, politics, and the ideas that shaped an empire. If history feels uncomfortably relevant sometimes, you're in the right place. If bread fed the body, the circuses fed something far more powerful: emotion. Public entertainment in Rome was on a scale that is difficult to imagine today. The city was dotted with colossal venues built for mass spectacle. The most famous, the Colosseum, could hold over 50,000 spectators, all gathered to watch brutal and bloody contests. These were not simple sporting events. They were elaborate, state-sponsored productions. The main attractions were the gladiatorial games, where trained fighters, often slaves or prisoners of war, fought each other to the death. These combats were a visceral display of martial skill, courage, and the ever-present reality of death, which captivated the Roman audience. Beyond the gladiatorial contests, the Romans craved variety in their entertainment. Chariot racing, held in the massive Circus Maximus, was another citywide obsession. The circus could hold a staggering 150,000 people, a quarter of the city's population, who would scream for their favorite teams. Reds, whites, blues, greens. These events were filled with drama, high-speed danger, and spectacular crashes. Emperors also staged elaborate beast hunts, pitting exotic animals like lions, tigers, and elephants against armed hunters in the arena. On rare and truly magnificent occasions, they even flooded the Colosseum to stage mock naval battles, known as naumachii, with real ships and fighting crews, recreating famous historical victories for the cheering crowds. The myth is that these games were just a form of popular entertainment, Rome's version of a football match. But the reality is that they were deeply political events. Sponsoring games was one of the most effective ways for a politician or emperor to win public favor. The cost was astronomical, but the payoff in popularity was immense. The emperor, seated in his imperial box, was the star of the show. He was seen by his people, sharing in their excitement and presiding over the life-and-death drama in the arena. Bread and circuses didn't begin with Augustus. The Roman Republic had experimented with food and games before, but Augustus perfected it and turned it into policy. After decades of brutal civil war, he rose to power, promising peace, stability, and order. But he understood a hard truth. Military force alone couldn't secure loyalty. He needed public affection, so he transformed bread and circuses from a temporary tactic into a permanent system of control. Augustus made the grain supply more reliable than ever, appointing high-ranking officials to oversee distribution and ensuring the people knew exactly who to thank. The message was subtle, but clear. Your survival flows from me. Entertainment followed the same logic. Games were scaled up to unprecedented levels: gladiatorial combats, theatrical performances, massive spectacles, funded and organized directly by the emperor. Augustus even recorded his generosity in the res gestae, proudly listing the thousands of gladiators and animals displayed for public amusement. In doing so, he monopolized popularity itself. No rival senator could compete. The crowd's loyalty now belonged to the emperor alone. The long-term effect of bread and circuses was not just distraction, it was transformation. In the early Republic, a Roman citizen was defined by participation. He voted, debated in the forum, served in the army, and helped shape public life. Politics was loud, contentious, and demanding, but it was central to Roman identity. That model didn't survive the empire. As power concentrated in the hands of the emperor and his inner circle, political participation quietly withered. Assemblies lost influence. Debate lost purpose. The public's attention was deliberately redirected away from governance and toward spectacle. The roar of the Circus Maximus replaced argument in the forum. The thrill of chariot races replaced the burden of voting. Watching gladiators fight to the death became easier than engaging in civic responsibility. The Roman citizen was slowly recast, not as an actor in public life, but as an audience member. Many welcomed the change. Political engagement is exhausting. A full stomach and a dazzling show are immediately satisfying. But this comfort came at a cost, the loss of collective power. Bread and circuses didn't just pacify Rome, they rewired what citizenship meant. And that raises an uncomfortable question. When pleasure replaces participation, what happens to freedom? If this made you rethink power, politics, or modern society, drop your thoughts in the comments. This is where curiosity meets truth. Like, follow, subscribe at Chasing Sunsets 49 for more philosophy that questions what we take for granted. One long video and 2 shorts every week, because thinking should never be passive. Take care and bye.